Joining me now, the Public Safety Minister, Marco Mendicino. Minister, always a pleasure to have you on the program. The news coming as you have both the Ukrainians and the Russians meeting in Istanbul, and they're talking about some kind of peace guarantor role for Canada in the event that they come to an agreement. What is that, and what role could Canada play?
Well, look, Canada's prepared to play any role that it can to support Ukraine and the restoration of peace and security on the ground. I know that the word that has come out is that there may be a new defined role for us to be active in. I know that this would be a role, if it were to come to fruition, that would serve as a complement to the other measures that we have taken, be it military aid, economic sanctions against Russia, the humanitarian corridors, which has already seen thousands arrive and more apply, or, Evan, as you know, the significant announcement today that the RCMP is going to be sending a specialized team to the International Criminal Court to investigate war crimes which are occurring in Ukraine, something that will ensure that we hold those perpetrators of the atrocities on the ground in Ukraine. And I would just point out what's happening in Mariupol as an example to account. So lots of important work that needs to continue to be advanced at this critical juncture.
Okay, let me move to that plan to send a team of RCMP investigators to The Hague. But as you say, how will they investigate if they're sent to Mariupol, which has been devastated and by the Russians? How are they going to stay safe? How do you ensure their safety? When could they go? How many could go? Any details there?
Well, this will be a team of dedicated experts who understand how to collect evidence which could be marshaled into a future prosecution that could be put before the International Criminal Court. Evan, these individuals will be deployed as quickly as possible, and where they go and they get dispatched will be taken in collaboration with the International Criminal Court. But I would just pause to emphasize that Canada was the first country in the world to officially ratify the Rome Statute, which is the empowering law that gives jurisdiction to the International Criminal Court. We are one of the founding members of the International Criminal Court, and it is important that in addition to all of the aid and support that we are providing Ukraine, that we make sure that those who are carrying out brutal attacks on innocent civilians day after day, rocketing homes, rocketing hospitals and maternity wards and playgrounds, are held to account. And the way that you can do that is by preserving the record and making sure that you collect the evidence, and the specialized team that is being sent to help the ICC will do just that. Okay,
can you just, again, any details on when they could get there, how many? And I understand there's also going to be some investigative work done here in Canada. Any news on any of that?
Well, they'll be dispatched as quickly as we can, and I know that is something that the Commissioner is working on, and indeed some, I think, are already en route. But you're quite right that in addition to sending a team to the International Criminal Court, that the RCMP are independently activating the War Crimes and Crimes Against Humanity program, which will allow them to undertake the collection of evidence here on Canadian turf. So interviewing witnesses, identifying potential suspects or persons of interest, and collecting other tangible or physical evidence which could be subsequently used in a prosecution. And this is important for three reasons. First and foremost, we want to be sure, again, that we are preserving the record. Second, we want to be sure that Canada is not used as a safe haven against those who may be trying to abscond and get away with it. And third and finally, we have to be sure that those who are perpetrating these crimes, which we're seeing carried out in Ukraine every single day, are held to justice and to account. That is something that Canada has a fine tradition of doing, whether it was in the former Yugoslavia, in Rwanda. We'll continue to do that here in Ukraine.
I got 10 seconds here, but you're saying some members of the RCMP team are already en route to go into Ukraine?
We're dispatching them as quickly as we possible to The Hague first, Evan, just to be clear. Okay. To The Hague first, and then from there they will take decisions independently on where they go.
Okay, that's what I thought. They're going to The Hague. Okay, Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino, I appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Evan.